This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Uganda on high alert as a 9-year-old girl dies from the Ebola virus in Kasese district. Ugandan doctor on the verge of finalizing a rapid test kit for hemorrhagic fevers like Ebola and Marburg. And European countries miss a few steps on measles elimination. We take a look at what's going on. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta, live in Nairobi. And for those of you joining us from across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at other stories making headlines this hour. In business, Nigeria technically bans imports of dairy products to prop the local sector. And in sports, Morocco dominates in karate, bagging gold medals in 10 different events. Once again, welcome, and we begin in Uganda, where Uganda's Ministry of Health announced a second Ebola outbreak in the western district of Kasese, about 472 kilometers from the capital Kampala, following an imported case from the neighboring Democratic Republic of the Congo. The Minister of State for Primary Health Care said in a statement that a 9-year-old female Congolese and her mother entered the country through the Mpondwe border to seek medical care at the Bwera Hospital. The child was identified by the point of entry screening team with symptoms of high fever, body weakness, rash, and unexplained mouth bleeding. News just coming in now indicate that the child has died while undergoing treatment at the Ebola treatment unit in Kasese. In June, Uganda confirmed 3 index cases of the highly contagious disease who visited the neighboring DRC. The outbreak was declared finished after 42 days of close monitoring. To some positive developments in the medical world, a Ugandan doctor could be one step away from finalizing a rapid test against hemorrhagic fevers like Ebola and Marburg. The kit, that is very similar to the one used in pregnancy tests, has already won him a World Health Organization award. The diagnostic kit is now due for clinical trials in Ebola-stricken areas like the Democratic Republic of Congo before it's okayed for use. CGTN's Isabel Nakiria reports from Uganda.
Tracking down infection levels with just a drop of body fluids like saliva or blood. A positive diagnosis against Ebola or Marburg will simply show 2 red lines on the strip. The new test kit will enable health workers carry out tests from any location. Dr. Misaki Wanyengera, who's behind the research, says the test gives early results.
The temperature monitors are not sensitive at an early stage because there is no fever at the early stage of the infection. So in the temperature gauges have been deployed at airports. If you fly around today, you will find these, a lot of them automated. You just walk through and the screen is taking your temperature, recording it. But while that is a good screening platform, it is not very effective.
Ebola usually presents with high temperatures as first signs, but other diseases like malaria also show similar symptoms. Dr. Misaki's rapid test will immediately tell whether a patient has Ebola or not. This is a simple rapid test against Ebola or Marburg that shows results in less than 5 minutes. The developers of this kit are hopeful it could be a potential replacement to the temperature gauge tests that require samples to be taken to the lab. Dr. Misaki says his team have been working on this innovation for over 15 years. His aim is to prevent health workers at the front line of the fight against Ebola from catching infections.
You can imagine if you're a health worker and you are seeing patients in a line. By the time you realize when the patient is vomiting blood and probably, and passing on, you have already been exposed. So for us in developing this test, we initially developed it to help health workers, to make sure that health workers who are working in remote equatorial African villages can be able to test and differentiate between a person with Ebola and not Ebola.
Dr. Misaki expects his innovation will be tested in Ebola-stricken areas before its approval for use and hopefully be able to freeze out the Ebola virus before it spreads. Isabel Nakiria, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
The World Health Organization now says the world is backsliding in the fight against measles, with a record number of cases recorded since 2006. Well, according to the World Health Organization, listen to this, there are nearly 365,000 cases that have been reported globally this year, the highest figure since 2006. These numbers represent only a fraction of the 6.7 million estimated cases annually. The DRC, Madagascar, and Ukraine have the highest number of infections so far. Europe has also lost ground, with 4 countries, Albania, Czech Republic, Greece, and Britain, stripped off of their measles-free status since 2018. Measles is a highly contagious disease and can disable or kill especially children. One person with measles can spread it up to 18 non-immunized other people.
There is no way to put a positive spin on this. The world is backsliding in the fight against measles. There is a new warning from the World Health Organization, and it's important because measles can disable or kill, and children are especially vulnerable. The WHO says measles have shown a dramatic resurgence, especially on the European continent. The rise is chiefly attributed to the fact there is a rising tide of families that are simply refusing to vaccinate their children, in part because they are skeptical of the vaccine. In the first half of 2019, the number of measles cases in Europe has more than doubled compared to 2018. Even countries that had effectively wiped out the disease, such as the United States, are now seeing a spike in measles. 4 countries in Europe, Albania, the Czech Republic, Greece, and the UK, lost their status of having the measles eradicated. Nearly 365,000 cases worldwide have been reported this year, the highest number since 2006.
So we have countries which have low vaccination coverage, which is contributing to the outbreaks of measles, but we also are seeing countries that have very high measles vaccination coverage, and yet outbreaks are happening. And the reason is that even in a national setting, where coverage is very high at the national level, there can be small pockets, communities of people where the vaccination coverage in that particular community is low and insufficient to prevent an outbreak.
Now, elimination doesn't mean the disease is totally wiped out, rather that a nation has gone 1 year without continuous transmission. The WHO says the latest news is awful, especially considering measles remain a vaccine-preventable disease. In 2017, more than 100,000 people around the world died of measles. We won't know the 2018 statistics until November. Sean Caleb, CGTN in Washington.
Joining us live now from London is Holly Hudson. Holly, thank you for joining us here on Africa Live to get more perspective on this story. Holly, why exactly is the United Kingdom in the list of countries that have lost their measles elimination status, and how has the health department reacted to this? Holly.
Well, 3 years after being certified for measles elimination, the World Health Organization has withdrawn the UK's measles-free status as a result of the worrying rise in cases and inadequate vaccination rates. Let's just look at some of those statistics here. I mean, ideally, obviously, everybody should be immunised here in the UK. That's what the target set by health experts was 95%. And the UK hit that target in 2016 when it was certified for measles elimination. However, that number's now fallen to 87% and continues to fall. There have already been 230 cases in England in the first quarter of this year, and the NHS expects that number to increase with a link to children going on summer holidays across Europe. And as well as that, only 1 in 7 now 5-year-olds are not up to date with their MMR vaccine. That means that when children start school in the next few days and weeks, up to 30,000 could be starting without being vaccinated. And doctors here very concerned by that, say that this is a sign that things are deteriorating here and declining. And the reason for that, they say, is that the reason they're so worried is not just because the UK is sort of backsliding, but because this is a preventable disease, and without such vaccination rates improving here in the UK, children will be put at risk of what is a potentially fatal disease.
All right, Holly, speaking of vaccinations, there have been reports of groups that are opposed to vaccinations of any kind. How widespread is this concern in the UK? Talk to us about that.
It's very much a concern, so much so that the Prime Minister Boris Johnson actually spoke about this just a few months into his premiership, pleading with parents to get their children vaccinated, saying it's the right thing for them, and saying that the reason he thinks that the UK is sort of going in the wrong direction for the first time is, as he put it, that parents are listening to this superstitious mumbo-jumbo anti-vaccine stuff. And he called on social media companies to sort of try and reverse the misinformation, as he called it, of myths that we've really suffered from here in the UK surrounding the MMR vaccine. And doctors do agree they're sort of having to try and push back and debunk these myths that started to originate in the 1990s when there was a publication of a paper that's now been widely discredited that linked MMR with autism. And since then, the jab, what parents were refusing to take their children for jab, and it took a long time for the MMR vaccine here in the UK to recover from that. But however, we aren't just seeing parents push back against the MMR vaccine here. There's also been a decline in the take-up of diphtheria and tetanus, so it proves a real surge in the number of sort of pro-nature parents, this anti-vaccine movement across the board here in the UK.
All right, Holly Hudson, let's leave it there for now. Thank you so much for your expertise on this particular subject matter. We shall be talking to you again real soon. Meanwhile, let's shift gears a little bit and go back to our top story, where a 9-year-old girl showed symptoms at a point of entry. The girl came through Mpondwe border with her mother, and the girl died while receiving care at Bwera Hospital. She died of Ebola. Let's get more on this story. And joining us from Kampala is Considine Buzabo. Considine, thank you for joining us here on Africa Live. News just reaching us indicate that the child has unfortunately died from the Ebola infection. Any more updates on this?
We are actually waiting for confirmation from the Ministry of Health for this. We have heard the same as you have, but we are waiting for the official confirmation from our Ministry of Health, and then we can definitely report on that officially. But we have heard the same rumor, but until our Ministry of Health confirms that, I cannot confirm that.
Well, let's talk about the child's caregivers, for example, the mother. Are they considered at risk of having contracted the virus during their journey from the DRC? Can you talk to us about that?
Absolutely. Yes, she is considered high risk because she has been exposed to the virus in taking care of her daughter. She is also in isolation and under observation in our Ebola treatment unit in Bwera in Kasese right now. Our health workers are on top of that situation as well. They are monitoring her very, very closely and giving us updates frequently to see how she is doing.
Well, my final question before I let you go: a massive Ebola vaccination campaign has been going on in parts of Uganda close to the border with the Democratic Republic of Congo. Talk to us about that and how that is progressing.
Yes, there is an ongoing Ebola vaccination happening in the western part of Uganda. The World Health Organization and our Ministry of Health are in charge of that, and I know that our health workers who are working in that area have been vaccinated and are safe. That is one of the reasons they are safe in dealing with any suspected Ebola cases in that area. However, the vaccination is still going on, and the World Health Program and our Ministry of Health will officially give us a progress report very soon on that one as well.
All right, Considine Buzabo, thank you for your insight and analysis. Thank you for bringing us that story. Excellent reporting. It's time now for a short break. You are watching Africa Live on CGTN. Here's a look at what's ahead. Uganda-Rwanda border traders say they are still waiting for relief after signing a peace treaty between the two countries. And Amazon fires blaze on as indigenous communities decry displacements. Welcome back now to the latest in Hong Kong. 4 leaders of political groups advocating Hong Kong independence have been detained. They are Andy Chan Houghton, Agnes Chow Ting, and Joshua Wong Chifeng. Wong and Chow were arrested this morning. They are both founding members of Hong Kong's political group Democisto. Earlier, our reporter Zhu Sichen gave us more details. Let's take a look.
CGTN confirmed with the Hong Kong police that activist Joshua Wong was arrested after messages surfaced online about Wong's arrest by the pro-Hong Kong Independence Party Wong funded. According to the party's message on Facebook and Twitter, Wong got arrested on his way to a subway station early Friday morning, and he is said to be facing 3 charges. Wong's arrest is highly linked with his involvement in illegal gatherings outside the police department in late June. We should be able to learn more details during the afternoon police daily briefing. Born in 1996, Wong was a prominent figure in the 2014 Occupy movement. According to Global Times, Wong has previously admitted that he has communicated with the U.S. consul in Hong Kong on issues related to Hong Kong's domestic politics that raised suspicion that Wong was colluding with the foreign powers to interfere in Hong Kong's domestic politics. Another member of Wong's party, Agnes Chow, was also arrested according to the party's social media handles this morning. In addition, one of the largest broadcasters in Hong Kong, TVB, also reported that international police involved in Wong's arrest.
The Hong Kong police say they also arrested several protesters yesterday.
Around 10:30 p.m., around 40 protesters gathered in front of the Sha Tin police stations. They aimed laser beams to the police officers. After several times of warnings and we started the arrest, we arrested one 21-year-old man and we found one laser gun. And this man was arrested for offenses of possession of offensive weapon. And we also arrested one 15-year-old girl, and also we sent her to court this morning around 11 p.m.
There have been calls in Hong Kong to ban protesters from wearing masks, an act that makes it difficult for police to track down lawbreakers. Let's take a listen.
Is it necessary for the government to enact such an anti-mask law? And I think there appears to be a necessity for such an enactment because protesters will be less aggressive when they wear no masks. And the police can identify violent protesters more easily, and most importantly, mask off can greatly reduce the risks of escalation of violence.
And to Somalia now, where the country is facing another humanitarian crisis just 2 years after the threat of a major disaster. Experts describe the current crisis as a climate emergency. More than 2 million people are threatened by severe hunger, with aid agencies saying at least 3 million people are uncertain of their next meal. So far, donors have promised less than half of the $1 billion UN and other agencies say is required. All right, to get more perspective on this, let's cross over to CGTN's Abdulaziz Bello, live in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu. Abdulaziz, thank you for joining us here on Africa Live. Now, reports warn of a looming famine in Somalia. You are on the ground. How bad is the situation, Abdulaziz?
Well, Somalia is a country with one of the most protracted humanitarian crises here in the world. And as you have mentioned, more than 2.2 million, according to estimates by the United Nations, as well as the Somali government, say that these families are facing acute food insecurity. And the country also has a huge displacement number of people. 2.6 million people are currently displaced. So those mostly affected are people who are living in south central regions of the country, areas of Mogadishu, Middle Shabelle, Bai, Bakol region, as well as Gedo region towards the border with neighboring Kenya. And also there's a high malnutrition rate that is being reported, especially in displacement camps. According to estimates, close to 50,000 children and more are in need of life-saving assistance in remote regions, especially in the Bai, Bakol and the Gedo regions. Now, interesting to note that the reasons as to why Somalia here is facing food insecurity is because of harsh weather patterns in recent years. We're talking about flooding, we're talking about drought, we're talking about cyclone, and then the cycle keeps on repeating time and time again. And also the humanitarian situation is being reported as very dire in Somaliland and Puntland regions, where mostly nomadic farmers are based. So families are forced to move from one region to another, especially with their children who are forced to leave schools to accompany their parents in search of water and pasture. So the overall humanitarian situation doesn't seem to be doing fine at the moment.
All right, Abdulaziz, my final question to you. Experts are calling for immediate action to help avert the food crisis, but what efforts has the government already put in place?
Well, one of the key drivers of humanitarian challenges here in Somalia is conflict, and this is one area that the government says that it's tackling. In recent months and in recent years, the government, backed by US drone strikes and African Union troops, have managed to liberate territories previously controlled by Al-Shabaab. Now, it was very hard for humanitarian aid agencies as well as the government to deliver aid in some of these areas, and the fact that they've been liberated means that aid agencies can be able to airlift and take humanitarian aid to these regions. So conflict, the government says it's addressing conflict, but one thing that it's not addressing is the harsh weather patterns here in the country. We're talking about a country that has suffered deadly humanitarian disasters back to back. Since 2010, more than 250,000 lives were lost, and it seems that the government hasn't learned from this, because 2017 there was also another drought. Even though there was no high death toll rate, still communities are still vulnerable. So experts are calling on the government to come up with resilience programs to ensure that these vulnerable communities, nomads and farmers alike, can be able to withstand future shocks, and they are not supposed to flee immediately there's a flood or immediately there is a drought. So the aid agencies are being called also to exert more pressure on durable solutions and not just think about providing handouts to these individuals so that they can overcome famine. But also countries like China have also been very vital in Somalia. 2014, the government of China has pumped in millions of dollars towards the humanitarian aid relief coordination here in Somalia. These funds have been very vital in assisting millions of Somalis here who are on the brink of famine.
All right, Abdulaziz Bello, thank you for talking to us. We appreciate your insights. That's Abdulaziz Bello speaking to us live from the capital, Mogadishu. Moving on. Tensions are still high at the Rwanda-Uganda border, where a trade dispute has been playing out for the past few months. Restrictions on the movement of people and goods has been hampering business on both sides of the border. All this comes a week after the leaders of the two countries signed a peace treaty in Angola. CGTN's Hilary Ayasega reports from western Uganda.
Preparing to market her merchandise, Fiona Mumpire deals in building materials, but it's not business as usual here.
Before they closed the border, we used to sell our goods to Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, but now we are not selling anything.
And she's not alone. Other businesses are also struggling.
People from abroad are the ones who used to come for our things. They could take things, they sell, after selling, they come for others, bringing that in, when they are bringing that money. And now we are here, even the things which they took there, they are still there with money. We don't have money, we don't have, everything is worse here.
Business here at the Katuna border post is on the low ebb, even after the two leaders signed the peace accord in Angola to ease trade. Traders here are worried that the current standoff could edge them out of business. Some businesses have already closed shop, and this border post has been temporarily closed for 6 months. Cargo trucks are being diverted to Mirama and Chanika entry points. Local leaders are now urging the two presidents to enforce the agreement.
We need these borders opened as early as yesterday. Our appeal is that we appeal upon the two parties to engage once again and see that business comes back to normal.
They also want them to set a clear time frame when the borders will be officially opened, in the hope this will restore the lifeline of many businesses that are on the verge of collapsing. Hilary Ayasega, Kabale, Western Uganda.
In Brazil, forest fires are affecting the country's indigenous communities such as the Kayepo. These communities live in the jungle and mainly get their basic commodities such as food and medicine from the forest. Recent forest fires allegedly started by loggers and cultivators have left many people from these communities homeless and in a desperate state. Here is CGTN's Daniel Arab Moy with the details.
With a rifle in his hand, Wakonkra Kayopo, who hails from Brazil's Kayopo indigenous community, sails along the Kurua River, searching for suspected prospectors and loggers. The 68-year-old man is from the Bau indigenous territory in Altamira, which is threatened not only by fires, but also by the loggers and miners trying to invade the area.
The forest will stay in its place. It can't be taken down. Nobody can damage the land or contaminate the fish because I'm here. Later, I will come back to see if there is more people passing or invading the area.
So far in 2019, 83,000 fires have been reported in Brazil. This is a 77% increase from the same period last year. Many of those fires were set in deforested areas by people clearing land for cultivation or pasture. With over 89% of Brazil's indigenous lands within the Amazon, groups like Kayopos are particularly exposed.
When I see the fire burning the forest, I begin to feel very sad. Our entire life belongs here in this forest. This is where we get our medicine, fruits and food. Burning it is like killing part of us.
According to Brazil's National Space Research Institute, an estimated 3,553 fires are now burning on 148 indigenous territories in the region. As a multitude of international players discuss how to develop and protect the Amazon, Kayopo and others find themselves on the front line of firefighting efforts and a never-ending feud with Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, who has argued the demarcation of indigenous lands have hindered business interests. Daniel Arab Moy, CGTN.
We've got your business news coming up next. We'll see you at the other side of the break. Here are the headlines. Nigeria technically bans imports of dairy products to prop the local sector. And transport officials in South Africa grapple with enforcing e-tolls nearly 6 years after introduction. Nigeria is my home. 160 million vibrant, ambitious individuals constantly seeking the perfect self-expression. It is these people who inspired me to be that person that is seen, to be a voice that is heard, and ultimately to be the anchor that I am. I have to tap in, tune in, and turn on the very best qualities within me to deliver the news. I'm Richard Nta, an anchor for CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Nigeria's central bank says it will no longer exchange foreign currencies for milk importation into the country. Annually, Nigeria spends between $1.2 billion to $1.5 billion on just milk imports, which the country can easily replace with its local production. The West African economy is looking at ways to reduce that figure, as CGTN's Philly Haza reports.
Nabil Musa has been a dairy farmer and rancher for more than 30 years on the outskirts of Abuja. But he says he has not made much money as his milk business still experiences low patronage.
Local dairy producers like me need government support. People don't buy a lot of our milk because they complain the quality is low.
Due to a high demand for foreign dairy products in Nigeria, more than $1 billion of milk is imported annually. That's according to the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. Milk producers in the country are mainly smallholder cattle farmers who produce less than 20% of their potential and can only sell to their community. As part of efforts by the government to discourage these large amounts of imported milk, the Apex Bank has decided not to exchange foreign currencies at subsidized rates for the dairy importers. This means traders bringing in milk from abroad will have to source for foreign currencies from unofficial markets at higher rates. Economic expert Paul Alaje says government's directive may increase investment opportunities in dairy production for the country.
The implication is there will be more demand of milk that are produced in Nigeria. Once that increases, it is believed that producers in Nigeria will be forced to increase output. When output increases, it's going to lead to more employment, more job creation. So you might want to come to Nigeria and actually produce, and you make good returns for your money.
However, local dairy farmers currently face a range of issues, including lack of enabling environment and skill to produce and process high-quality dairy products. In addition, they are faced with high cost of production, poor access to funding, and an ongoing herders and farmers clash, which poses as a threat to the sector.
The move by the government to encourage local milk production might be a welcome development for Nigeria's dairy industry, but experts say boosting the capacity of its farmers like Musa may be urgently required.
What government should do is to support them. Now, government might want to support them by providing them with dedicated power supply. Government might also want to direct, say Development Bank of Nigeria, among other banks, to support them and give them facility at single digit. We also may want to look for those who want to start a business to intern, to have internship of some sort with some that are already successful already within the sector.
The central bank has also promised to offer cheap credit facilities and training to local milk producers to boost the quality and quantity of their output in order to compete with foreign products. And that may be good news for local dairy farmers like Musa, who is starting to see the taste of his milk go beyond his current reach. Phil Ihaza, CGTN, Abuja.
South Africa's Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula is still consulting stakeholders about what to do about the e-toll situation in Gauteng. According to recent research, the majority of road users are still resisting paying tolls in the province. On the other hand, the province and the government has to honor its international debt obligations. CGTN's Angela Coppola has more.
The research suggests that close to 12% indicated that they used to pay their e-toll accounts but no longer do, while 38% said that they had never paid their e-tolls accounts. Government is considering scrapping the toll, but it's a tricky situation.
It will also affect
our fiscus and our economic outlook going forward, from issues of our lending capacity and the bond market that we actually have to look at and basically service. So it's not a straightforward matter that you arrive at one conclusion, boom, it is done.
Civic organizations like OUTA have been unsuccessfully lobbying government since the tolls were introduced. There have been 7 ministers since then. They want it.
You can't be half pregnant on tolls. You can't half toll. You either toll or you don't. And when you toll, you need to get into the 90% compliance levels, and you need to recover the money for the bonds. And now we've got 5 years of empirical evidence, nearly 6 years. The scheme has failed. They'll never get there.
Initially, the plan was to have a decision by the end of August. That deadline has passed. Discussions, though, still have to be held with political groupings and trade unions.
I don't want to go out and go to cabinet and go to the president and somebody says, yeah, but he didn't listen to us. And I'm not either doing this thing as a make me nice, but it's to incorporate that in our perspective.
OUTA is adamant that e-tolls in its current format is unacceptable and inefficient.
It is the grossest waste of time and money. The e-toll scheme, if ETC got their way, would have earned 1.6 billion rand a year before 1 rand went into the tarmac. That is unacceptable. That is a 61% admin fee on top of the finance fee. It's the worst and the highest in the world. The world average is below 10%.
For 6 years, the government has been trying to get the road users in Gauteng to pay those e-tolls. Most of them have flatly refused, and it doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
From a specialized nurse to a successful tomato farmer, that's the story of one Zambian woman who is trending after her unexpected career change. Once a cardiology nurse in Australia, Maria Zalumis quit her medical profession 4 years ago to run her family's commercial farm. Today, Zalumis employs over 70 people and is regarded as one of Zambia's leading tomato farmers. With Zalumis' story, here's CGTN's Beryl Ororo.
4 years ago, Maria Zalumis quit nursing in Australia to attend to her ailing father. Before returning home to Zambia, Zalumis practiced cardiology for nearly a decade. However, today, Zalumis is making waves as one of Zambia's leading tomato farmers.
It's a very busy life. Today I woke up at 5 a.m. We've been harvesting since 5:30 this morning. It's basically I've got no time for anything else but the farming. But it's my passion. It's something that I love to do. So I don't look at it as a job. I look at it as a way of life. So for me, this is what I love.
For nearly 6 months, Zalumis went by without an income. Reason being, she was apparently overqualified. However, one day, she decided to have a go at running the family farm since her father was by then incapacitated. Since then, Zalumis has never looked back and doesn't regret the accidental career switch, saying farming is a labor that demands affection.
And I like to help the less privileged. I think that's one thing that really pushed me into farming was helping people who haven't been to school, giving them jobs, reducing poverty, and then, giving them a future.
When you're working, you need to make sure that you need to support the family. And as of that, Tuzini Farms has really helped me to get an income to help the family. Things are tough these days, but at least I've been able to help me in that one.
Now when we get paid, I pay school fees and my children can go to school. I keep paying every month and I have no problems.
Zambia is currently in the midst of a stressful drought, which has for the past years affected the country's farming season. According to official figures, around 2.5 million individuals in the country are at the moment facing food shortage. However, Tuzini Farm, located 25 kilometers north of Lusaka, is thriving nonetheless. The farm produces a median of 72 tons of tomatoes in just a single month, as it looks to increase that figure in the coming years. Beryl Oro, CGTN.
If you're looking to explore Kenya this week, the 2019 Maralel Camel Derby is the place for you. Residents in the Kenyan county of Samburu are preparing to mark the 30th edition of the Camel Derby Festival this weekend. CGTN's Flonella Lupowana brings you up to speed with what to expect.
The Maralal Camel Derby is an annual event held mid-year just outside the Kenyan town of Maralal. The festival is one of the country's most prestigious events, attracting both local and international competitors.
It is an international event that we expect all nationalities from all over the world to come and participate. We have been able to get up to 20 plus nationalities coming to compete in this race. So in terms of hotels bookings, in terms of camping, in terms of food and all this, transport, there's a lot of money that will be circulating around here. And so it's a huge boost to the local economy, so to say.
The annual derby, which is set to kick off this weekend, has thrilled sports lovers for almost 3 decades now. Each year, thousands of local residents welcome hundreds of foreigners to celebrate their unity in cultural diversity. From the young to the elderly, everyone is given something to enjoy, as well as a lesson or two to take home. For participants, the cash prizes for the camel riding competition are very tempting, with almost $70 at stake. Those who don't participate, though, are not left behind. They're usually exposed to exciting side activities, among them the Samburu traditional wedding ceremony.
Samburu is unique in terms of culture because they have preserved their culture over the years, though there's a lot of interaction with other communities, but they have maintained their culture.
In addition to the extravaganza, the Samburu County boasts a vast collection of impressive natural landscapes ranging from volcanoes to deserts.
These areas are also very scenic. We have very good sceneries. This is the Holy Land, the Hollywood. This is the Hollywood of Africa. Many films have been acted in Samburu. Reference is the White Maasai, the Survival, the Walking by the Lions. So all these films have been acted in this particular county.
And as the curtains fall on one of the rarest camel derbies across the globe, participants here hope this festival will uplift the lives of many for years to come. Shlanela Lupuana, CGTN.
The news continues on Africa Live. We've got a lot more wonderful, amazing, and inspiring stories coming your way. Let's look at the headlines. Tunisian carpet weaver helps revive traditional weaving methods amid mechanization.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
A Tunisian carpet weaver is helping revive the ancient craft. See him as one of the few remaining artisans still making traditional carpets despite the mechanization of the process. Let's take a look.
This farm is located in the village of Mansoura, governorate of Sidama, northwest of Tunisia. Siham is not an ordinary farmer. She's feeding her ewes and taking care of the flock to get the best natural wool. Spinning yarn from wool is a long and tiring process for a 47-year-old craftswoman. Though Siham enjoys observing the endless circular movement of yarn.
Spinning yarn manually has become rare in our country. I resist this by reviving traditions to guarantee the wool quality.
Siham started weaving rugs at 14. She considers loom work as art and dedicates several hours a day to this work. The artisan imagines, realizes, then observes her own patterns on the handmade carpet.
When I was a kid, girls in our village had no option but to learn weaving rugs. I left school at 11 and fell in love with artistic weaving. Now, everything has to be perfectly made without flaws.
Siham was married in the 1990s. The weaver's family has always encouraged her to work and to further develop the skill of carpet weaving.
My wife has dedicated her life to craftsmanship. Sometimes Siham creates impressive pieces. I've never been a selfish husband. I support my wife and I'm aware how difficult this job is.
Earning a decent living and empowering women in this remote inner region are some of Siham's dreams.
Women are deserting this sector and abandoning loom work. I want to revive it and to train new generation of weavers. Craftsmanship is our past, present and future.
Every day, the artisan wakes up to this sound. It echoes her heartbeat that will remain loud as long as Siham is capable of weaving Tunisia's traditional carpets.
Siham has managed to revive a craft that had nearly disappeared from her village and from the whole country. She's determined to sell this unique product in different regions and to export handmade carpets to Europe, Asia and other foreign markets. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, the village of Al Mansoura, Siliana, northwest of Tunisia.
You're watching Africa Live on CGTN. We've got your sports news coming up after the break. Let's take a sneak peek at what's coming up. Morocco dominating karate, bagging gold medals in 10 different events.
Africa, where champions are made, records are broken, legends are born. We're there for every goal, for every knockout, for every step of the way. Match Point, only on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Thanks for staying with us. We start with the African Games, where Morocco celebrated a roaring performance in karate on Thursday to consolidate 5th position in the medal standings. The hosts scooped up not 1, not 2, not 3, but 10 medals, the most by any other competing nation in the martial arts sports. CGTN's Mohammed Boubacar was at the medal award ceremony in Rabat and filed this report.
The Moroccan national anthem was heard almost a dozen times on the final day of karate at the Moulay Abdallah Indoor Arena in Rabat. Morocco bagged gold medals in 10 different events, the kata men's and women's final for both individual and team categories. Committee events for the different weight categories for both individuals and teams was also predominantly won by the Moroccans.
Very happy about this gold medal, winning this gold medal, because it's a pleasure to give my medal to my country and makes Moroccan people happy.
One of the victorious karatekas was Aisha Sayah, winning gold in the women's under 50 kilograms.
All the women in karate here in Morocco have shown that they are ready to compete against the best in Africa. Everyone now knows what we're capable of, and they know it won't end here. Our ladies will keep getting better.
She is confident with the direction the sport is taking in her country and hopes their dominance in the region and the continent will soon be reflected in world events as well.
I must say thank you to the work of the National Center for Karate here in Morocco. I've won this gold for the 2nd time now. It only shows that my training is right and I'm not a fluke. I now just want to push on and be ready for Tokyo 2020.
This games is one of my important championship in this year, and this one pushed me and give me the power to go for the World Games.
The next big stage for Morocco's karate contingent will be the 2020 Karate World Championship in Dubai and the Olympic Games in Tokyo. Mohamed Abubakar for CGTN, Morocco.
And still in Morocco, and onto some sad news. Floods have killed at least 7 football fans who were watching a match in the Touradant region of Tizert. The flash floods caused a nearby river to overflow, pushing torrents of water over a football field where an amateur match was being played in the southern part of the kingdom. Spectators scrambled for their lives, with some climbing on roofs for safety. Amongst those who succumbed were a 17-year-old boy and a recently married 35-year-old Hanafi Hilali, who was seeking refuge on top of a dressing room but was swept away by the raging waters. For the latest on what is happening in Morocco, let's cross over to CGTN's Mohammed Abubakar, who is in the capital, Rabat. Mohammed Abubakar, thank you for taking time out to join us here on Africa Live. We start with the unfortunate passing of 7 football fans following floods in a stadium. What has been the reaction to this incident in Morocco? Mohammed.
Well, as you said, it's been an unfortunate 24 hours for the locals here in Morocco. The Taroudant region, which is about 600 meters south of Rabat, it's an arid area, so this incident wasn't seen coming by the locals. They're just going about their business, watching a football match. But what this has done to the local organizing committee here for these events is it has made them try and be prepared. It's a reminder of some sort to try and be prepared of any natural disasters that might occur in and around Rabat, where the games are actually ongoing. We have 4 cities hosting the games, so it's more of a reminder as well in terms of the reaction now from the local organizers here to make sure there's enough preparedness for such unfortunate events.
All right, well, from sad news to, I guess, some good news, there was joy for the host in karate at the African Games on Thursday. Has that performance given the home nation a lift, in your opinion, Mohammed?
It definitely has, and Morocco has been dominating in this sport together with the other North African nations in the African Games. They're content with the number of medals they've scooped. It has helped them in the medal standings as well, but for the Moroccan Federation here, the Karate Federation, it's more important for them to now be consistent in nurturing the talents and making sure as much as they perform well in the local games, the continental games, they can go to that level to compete with the global the best in global events as well. So for them, it's more of now being consistent and taking it up a notch a little bit so that they can be able to compete in the World Championships and the Olympics as well. Richard?
Well, we are winding down the 2019 African Games. What highlights can we expect from Morocco? Mohammed.
Well, for highlights, we have to go to track and field. It's the last day for track and field. There's been like duels in terms of the nations. We have Nigeria, South Africa taking on each other in the sprints here, winning gold medals, bronze, silver, and of course the long distance. There's a nice battle between the Kenyans and the Ethiopians so far. The Ethiopians have won better of the Kenyans, but we have a number of finals lined up today. The 5,000 meters men's final, the 1,500 meters men's and women's final as well for the long distance runners, and Kenya and Ethiopia still have a chance here to get one better the other. And of course the sprints as well. We have 200 meters for the men's and women's and 4x400 meters. So this is between Nigeria and South Africa. Lots will change today because it is the last day for the track and field events here at the Moulay Abdallah Stadium in Rabat. Richard?
All right, Mohammed Abubakar, thank you for talking to us from Morocco. We appreciate your insights. Let's talk a bit of football now. Monher Kaber has surprisingly been appointed the new head coach